By modeling kindness and self-respect and resilience, we can give our kids the tools to navigate this crazy life with a little bit more confidence and self-love. This simple yet super profound practice can create lasting change and empower our kids to grow into, adults who are super compassionate, confident, and capable of chasing any challenges that they face head on. Welcome to Strong as a Mother podcast, the podcast that empowers moms to choose themselves and leave the mom guilt behind. We're saying goodbye to the back burner and hello to strength, nourishment, and self-acceptance. We are no longer chasing the smallest versions of ourselves. I'm Miranda, fitness coach and mom of two. Join me for lighthearted chats and practical tips and resources that you can integrate in your life as a busy mom. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you again that this is a safe place for all parents, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, a working mom, a single mom, or a dad playing both roles. This is a safe place. This is your community. We're here to support each other, lift each other up, share experiences, and grow. So let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to Strong as a Mother podcast. I'm so amped to have you here for another mom chat. I'm really excited to talk about this one because I feel like it's something that moms struggle with so much, and it's something that I have deeply struggled with, and that is dealing with negative self-talk. This inner dialogue often runs in the background of our thoughts and in our day-to-day lives as we're trying to be the best moms that we can be. These thoughts are often fueled by doubt, criticism, and some unkind words that we would never say to anybody else, but we seem to say to ourselves all the time. For moms, negative self-talk can be particularly pervasive and very harmful to our mental health, but not only to ourselves, but the environment that we're trying to create for our children. So this episode is kind of like all about unpacking that and really unpacking the issue of negative self-talk. And we're going to explore negative self-talk, the common issues that fuel it, and the long-term effects that it can have on us and our children and their confidence and self-esteem. I'm going to share a personal story of my own struggle with negative self-talk. I'm going to talk about the things that I did to work on changing it. And we're going to dive into some practical strategies that you can integrate into your life so you can challenge those thoughts, talk more kindly to yourself, and be a better role model for your kids too. We really need to start taking control of the narrative that we have in our heads. And it's not easy to do, but with some repetition, just like with our workouts, we can build that muscle and we can set a much healthier, positive, and more empowering example for our kids. What is negative self-talk though? So negative self-talk, it refers to like that internal dialogue that we have that focuses on our perceived shortcomings, failures, inadequacies, things like that. And for moms, it could maybe sound like, I'm such a bad mom. I always forget everything. I'll never get this all done. Why can't I just look like I used to? Or I am failing as a mother, or I'm failing my kids. These thoughts, they can be fleeting or they can be constant, but they always leave us feeling worse or feeling less than capable as a mom. And the thing that really makes negative self-talk so insidious is that it's often automatic. Over time, it's become our default way of thinking. And it really has shaped how we see ourselves and how, not only that, but how we engage with the world around us. It can manifest in so many different ways. It can be catastrophizing things. If I don't do everything perfectly, I'll ruin my kids. It can be personalizing. So my child is having tantrums and it's my fault. It can be labeling. So I'm so disorganized. I'm a terrible mom. I'm a failure. And these thoughts, unfortunately, do not just stay in our heads. They influence the words that we're using and they influence our actions. Some examples of that are always apologizing unnecessarily, dismissing compliments, expressing frustration with ourselves to others. These are all different ways that negative self-talk escapes our minds and go out into the open. And understanding like where negative self-talk comes from is super important in order to change it. So there's some reasons why it could come up, but like cultural expectations, like societal ideals about what it means to be a good mom that could create maybe some impossible standards for you, childhood experiences, criticism maybe that you got from caregivers growing up, teachers that has lingered as you've grown into an adult, perfectionism, the drive to do everything right, which can amplify self-criticism, and trauma or past experiences, like maybe some negative experiences that you might have dealt with growing up that reinforced this self-doubt and created these patterns of thinking, or created these self-criticism patterns of thinking. These negative thoughts, they don't just pop up out of nowhere. It's often like comes from a situation or a challenge that we might have faced. Something like maybe like dealing with comparison. You know, we have social media, so it's super easy to get stuck into like a negative comparison loop. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I know we've talked about that in other episodes, and social media is its accomplice. Scrolling through Instagram and Facebook can leave you feeling absolutely drained and inadequate, especially when we're dealing with perfectly curated shots, photoshopped images, moms that seem to have it all together and have these perfect lives, whether it's a clean house, a perfect body, seamlessly endless patience. It's super easy to feel like we don't measure up. Another thing is maybe unrealistic expectations. So as moms, we have this impossibly high standard placed upon us, whether it's working outside of the home, guilt about not cooking at home all the time, not breastfeeding. We talked about these things in episode 1. Or a huge one is the guilt of practicing self-care. This emotion feeds directly into that negative self-talk or our inner critic. Another thing is like fatigue and stress. And come on, as moms, like we all know how that feels. We're always running on empty, trying to take care of everybody else's needs before our own. And it's sometimes harder to maintain a positive outlook when we're feeling run down. Lack of sleep, chronic stress, overwhelm, it can make us feel much more vulnerable to those critical inner thoughts. And lastly, like I mentioned earlier, is those past experiences. So this negative self-talk often stems from our own childhood. If we grew up maybe in a critical environment, we're constantly told that we need to do better, be better, look better. These messages can stick with us long into our adult years, and it can really shape how we speak to ourselves and how we show up in our lives. But negative self-talk doesn't just harm us, it has a profound impact on our kids as well, because our kids, as we know, are little sponges. They absorb everything that we do, that we say, and when we're engaging in negative self-talk, we're inadvertently teaching our kids to model the same behavior. They obviously learn how to navigate this world by observing ours. If they see us constantly tearing ourselves apart, being critical to ourselves, they're likely to adopt those same patterns. For example, if your kid constantly hears you talking bad about your body, they might feel self-conscious about theirs. They also internalize messages. So when we speak negatively about ourselves, kids can interpret that as a reflection of their own worth. If mom doesn't think she's good enough, maybe I'm not good enough. They can develop anxiety or low self-esteem when they're, constantly around or absorbing the words that their parents are saying, whether that's constant self-criticism, talking poorly about food, about exercise. They can grow up feeling super insecure themselves and being super self-critical to themselves as well. They might also feel this immense pressure to be perfect, to avoid criticism as well. And lastly, a fear of failure. If kids are always seeing us beat ourselves up over making maybe silly mistakes, they might learn the fear of failure instead of seeing it as like a natural part of growth and learning. I wanted to share a moment when negative self-talk really affected my parenting. One day I was trying to get the kids ready for school and I was juggling a million things at once, shocker, and I dropped a cup of coffee in the kitchen. In frustration, I muttered, I'm such a mess. And my daughter looked at me and said, "You're not a mess, mommy." It broke my heart to realize not only was I being unkind to myself, but my child was absorbing that negative energy. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. Changing your negative self-talk requires a lot of effort and energy, and it's not something that can just be changed overnight. It's an ongoing thing. It's something that you have to learn to recognize, challenge, and choose differently. But it is so possible, and it can be such an empowering experience if you commit to the practice of positive self-talk. I think it's super important to, one, develop awareness. So that's going to be the most important thing with combating negative self-talk is, maybe you keep a journal and you track when you are having these negative thoughts. Because we all know bringing awareness is the first step to change. Learning to replace those negative thoughts with more positive ones. For example, instead of saying, "I'm such a mess, I'm so unorganized, I'm a bad mom," you say, "I'm learning as I go and it's okay. I'm trying the best that I can." Another thing that can be really helpful, and this is something that works for some people, but some people can take it or leave it, and that's practicing positive affirmations. Start your day with either journaling some positive affirmations, saying them in the mirror, saying them out loud. Bonus points if you're saying them out loud where your kids can hear them and you get them involved. In addition to that, adding in that gratitude piece. We've talked about gratitude a couple times throughout the podcast, and I think practicing gratitude is one of the most underutilized things to help improve your mindset around anything and really set the tone of your day. When you get into the habit of searching for good, you're priming your mind for the positive, and when you express more gratitude, more good comes to you. By focusing on the positives, writing them down, whether that's, 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for every single day, this helps shift your mindset from criticism to appreciation. Make sure that when you are making mistakes, that you're also modeling self-compassion and you're showing your kids that too. I made a mistake, but I'll do better next time. I think this is really important so your kids can see you modeling that self-compassion so they feel safe to do the same. Unfortunately, negative self-talk can be something that is deeply ingrained, and breaking the cycle might require help from a professional, and I just want to say that that's okay. There's nothing wrong with seeking professional help. A professional can provide valuable tools and insights to help you work through this more efficiently. Negative self-talk can have such a profound impact on our kids. So I wanted to kind of expand on that and how children often model our behavior. It's super important to understand or consider how our negative self-talk creates this ripple effect that can infect our immediate family members. It can manifest in our child's behaviors, in their friendships, and in their future mindsets. When it comes to their friendships and their social interactions, children who grow up seeing their parents belittle themselves might struggle with forming healthy relationships or even friendships. They could doubt their worth, assume that they need to overcompensate to gain approval from others. For example, if a kid constantly hears mom saying, "I'm not smart enough for this," or "I'm not good enough," they might shy away from group projects maybe, or from taking chances on themselves, or develop a fear of speaking in front of the class. You have to really consider how these patterns can evolve over time. These tendencies can translate into much more significant social anxiety problems where they maybe avoid doing sports teams, or they miss out on valuable opportunities for growth and connection because they're scared to take a chance on themselves. Kids who internalize their parents' critical self-talk might avoid conflict altogether, fearing judgment, rejection, and this behavior can limit their ability to navigate situations or disagreements and advocate for themselves when they need to. I think conflict resolution is an amazing skill to have. Without it, we could maybe struggle in professional situations. Like I mentioned earlier, not being able to advocate for ourselves when we need to, or voice our opinions and our opinions matter. As kids grow older, it could also impact their future relationships. So they might carry these learned behaviors into their romantic relationships or their professional relationships. They might struggle with asserting their feelings or their needs, believing that they don't deserve respect or maybe success. And this can result in a pattern of settling for less, whether that's friendships, romantic relationships, or professional opportunities, due to this ingrained belief that they are inadequate. So maybe they stay stuck in this unfulfilling job that they hate, or they stay in a relationship longer than they should. And lastly, a child that's exposed to constant self-criticism could maybe set lower goals from themselves, like not taking chances on themselves, convinced that they are not capable of achieving them maybe. So if you're a parent that is constantly saying, I'm not good at this, a child might internalize this and internalize the idea that they're not good enough either. So someone who believes that they're not good enough, or a child that believes they're not good enough, they might not apply for scholarships in school or internships at jobs. And they cut themselves off from other huge opportunities because they don't feel like they're worthy. Negative self-talk is super toxic and it can infect people close to you. So to prevent these long-term consequences that we are potentially implicating on our kids, it's super important to replace negative self-talk with more positive reinforcement and a lot more encouragement. You want to highlight your own growth, your resilience when discussing the challenges that you might have faced. Maybe you learned a new skill. Maybe you held a plank longer. Maybe you lifted a weight you never thought that you would do. Maybe you went to the gym 4 days this week, even though you had a busy schedule. You should be celebrating yourself and showing your kids that it's okay to prioritize yourself and show them what progress looks like. You want to emphasize effort, not just the outcome. You could involve your kids in goal setting activities. Like maybe you create a family vision board with each having individual aspirations. This can help your child learn to like visualize or like see their goals. It makes them feel like a little bit more achievable and attainable, and it helps reframe any challenging thoughts that you might have and gives you an exciting outlook to look forward to. But again, reframing negative self-talk is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to require consistent effort and intentional practice. So some tools and techniques that you can do to deepen your journey are mindfulness practices. So you can incorporate mindfulness techniques such as learning to interrupt negative thought patterns, practicing things like deep breathing, meditation, grounding exercises to help you stay more present and redirect your focus. Breathe in deeply, say a mantra to yourself like I'm good enough, or those positive affirmations that I was talking about earlier. I choose kindness for myself today. I'm enough. You take some time, especially during stressful moments, to pause and acknowledge your feelings without judgment. You can break free from that autopilot thinking and shift your internal dialogue. There's so many apps online that you can use to practice mindfulness techniques that you can easily integrate into your daily routine. And these apps are kid-friendly too, so get the kids involved. Another thing that can be a really empowering exercise is learning to rewrite your narrative. So replacing those self-critical stories with more empowering ones. For example, instead of focusing on mistakes you made, celebrate the small wins that you achieved. Write down 3 things that you accomplished each day, no matter how small they are. I always say that there's no such thing as a small win. A win is a win. You can use journaling prompts like, what did I do well today? Or what's one thing that I'm proud of this week? These can just help you get into the habit of looking for the good. You can even make this a family exercise and encourage your kids to join in with you as a part of like maybe a nightly reflection. Everybody could write down 3 to 5 things that went well from them in a day, or it could be a weekly practice, and everybody could share their contributions of a positive moment or a lesson that they learned from the day. Affirmation cards or post-its with positive affirmations on them can be very helpful. Writing down, affirmations and sticking them where you see them every single day, like a bathroom mirror, or on your desk, on the fridge. Things like I'm patient, or I'm resilient, I'm strong, I'm learning and growing every single day. And involving your kids in this can be a really powerful practice, and it teaches them to look for the good as well. And lastly, again, gratitude journaling. I think practicing gratitude is such an important piece of every single day. This helps you shift your focus from what you lack to what you do have. And each night you could write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for, emphasizing moments that you felt your best, or maybe felt proud of yourself, or maybe you're parenting. And you can use this as a reflection of how far you've come rather than dwelling on your shortcomings. Breaking the habit of negative self-talk is going to start with you. It starts with modeling better habits for our kids. So to actively teach your kids the importance of self-kindness, you need to be celebrating effort, not perfection, praising your child's effort rather than the outcome. For example, instead of saying, "You're so smart," say, "I'm proud of how hard you work towards this." Also, get into the habit of celebrating failures as opportunities for growth and learning. This can really help reframe their thoughts of what failure means. And then teaching them to reframe as well. Encourage your kids to reframe any negative thoughts that they have or that they express to you. If they say, "I'm bad at math," help them reframe it to, "Math is challenging, but I'm committed to learning and getting better." Committing to breaking the habit of negative self-talk isn't just a gift for you, it's a gift for your family. It's a legacy that you are going to leave behind, and you can be the generational change for your family. By modeling self-kindness at home, you're creating an environment where mistakes are learning opportunities, effort is celebrated, and everybody feels valued. Practicing positive self-talk in front of your kids and not beating yourself up all the time is probably one of the most powerful tools that moms have to influence how our kids view themselves and the world around them. Children are highly impressionable. They tend to absorb and mimic our behaviors, our attitudes, and the language that we use to speak to ourselves, to others. When you're consistently speaking kindly to yourself, you're not only setting an example for how to treat yourself with compassion, but it also shapes the inner dialogue that your kids will carry with them throughout their lives. Positive self-talk helps children develop a much more compassionate and encouraging inner voice, because kids are inclined to naturally look to their parents for guidance on how to navigate challenges and setbacks. So when you're modeling positive self-talk and saying things like, "I'm so proud of how hard I worked today," or "I'm proud of myself for accomplishing what I accomplished today," or "I'm learning and that's okay," it teaches our kids that making mistakes or facing difficulties in their life is not something to be feared or to criticize. Instead, it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And this builds that foundation of resilience early on and confidence, showing kids how to approach this life with a growth mindset. But when we're constantly speaking negatively about ourselves, especially in the terms of our abilities, our appearance, our worth, this can leave a lasting impression as well. So our kids might internalize this negativity, believing similar things about themselves, or maybe even adopting the same critical inner critic. If you're constantly a mom that says, "I hate how I look in this outfit," or "I look bad today," or "I can't do anything right," your children might begin to view themselves through that same harsh lens. And this can really affect their confidence, their self-esteem, and even their body image as they grow into adolescents, young adults, and adults. Positive self-talk also plays a crucial role in fostering a healthy sense of self-worth. Children who hear their parents talking positively about themselves and talking respectfully and lovingly about themselves learn that self-love and self-respect are extremely important. And this is super significant because it will help combat any societal pressures or like unrealistic beauty standards or the expectation to always be perfect, which so many children are exposed to at a very young age. When you have a mom who celebrates her strengths, acknowledges her self-worth, she empowers her kids to do the same, even in the face of external pressure. A mom's positive self-talk promotes a much healthier body image as well. So comments about weight, appearance, perceived flaws, they can really shape how your children view their own bodies, often in ways that linger into adulthood. Conversely, when a mom focuses on what her body can do, like we talked in other episodes about focusing on strength and focusing on your body's capability, like being strong, being capable, and being resilient, it teaches kids to value function over appearance. They learn to appreciate their bodies for what they can do and what they can achieve rather than solely on how they look. Practicing positive self-talk, it's not just about individual moments. It is breaking generational cycles of self-criticism and creating a much healthier emotional environment within your family. So many moms have grown up in households or even cultures where self-depreciating language was normalized, and reversing that pattern can feel so challenging. And I'm not saying that it's not, because it is, but by making a conscious effort of how you speak to yourself and speaking to yourself more positively, you can create a ripple effect that impacts not only your children, but future generations as well. It's also worth noting that positive self-talk teaches children the importance of self-compassion. Life is full of challenges, and how a mom handles these moments in front of her kids sets the tone for how they will approach future situations. Saying, "I didn't do my best today, but tomorrow's a new chance," or "tomorrow's a new day," it demonstrates that it's okay to not be perfect. And it encourages your kids to approach maybe their own struggles with the same patience and understanding, rather than, frustration or self-criticism. Ultimately, positive self-talk is more than just a mom's relationship with herself. It's about shaping how her children view themselves, their abilities, and their place in this world. By modeling kindness and self-respect and resilience, we can give our kids the tools to navigate this crazy life with a little bit more confidence and self-love. And this simple yet super profound practice can create lasting change and empower our kids to grow into, adults who are super compassionate, confident, and capable of chasing any challenges that they face head on. I hope that this episode is a reminder that change is possible, even when it feels difficult at first. It's something that I still struggle with and work on every single day. It is not a small feat to work towards reframing negative self-talk, but small steps practiced consistently lead to profound transformation over time. I want to leave you with this. The words that you speak to yourself hold a power that you might not even realize. They shape your thoughts, they shape your beliefs, and ultimately they shape your reality. And yet so many of us carry on with this dialogue in our minds that's crueler than anything that we would ever say to anybody else. We hold ourselves to these impossible standards that magnify our flaws, and they criticize every shortcoming. But let me ask you, if your child or your best friend or your mom or your dad or someone you just loved so deeply were struggling, would you speak to them the way that you speak to yourself? Imagine your child came up to you after a tough day, feeling so defeated, maybe unsure. Would you look them in the eye and say, "You're not good enough. You're a failure. You'll never get it right"? Of course you wouldn't do that. Or at least I hope not. You'd offer them comfort. You'd remind them of their worth. And you'd encourage them to keep going. You'd tell them they were strong. You would tell them they were capable, that they are loved, because that's what they deserve. And yet when it's you, the narrative changes. You become your own harshest critic. You expect perfection and you punish yourself for being human. Why is it that we show so much kindness and compassion to others, but we deny it to ourselves? Why do we believe that our own self-worth is conditional on being flawless or achieving the impossible standards that we set upon ourselves? The truth is that you can't bully yourself into being better. You can't shame yourself into being stronger. Real growth doesn't come from tearing yourself down. It comes from lifting yourself up, even when you feel like you don't deserve it. The way you speak to yourself matters, not just for your own well-being, but for those around you. Your children are watching, they're listening, they're absorbing everything that you say or do, including how you treat yourself. They're forming their own inner voices based on the examples that you give. And if you're constantly putting yourself down, beating yourself up, telling yourself you're not good enough, what message do you think that they're taking away from that? But when they see you giving yourself grace, treating yourself with kindness, when they hear you saying, I'm enough, I'm learning, I'm proud of myself for showing up, I tried really hard, or teaching them it's okay to be human. You teach them that self-love isn't selfish, it's essential. It's about speaking to yourself with the same compassion and patience and understanding that you so freely give to everybody else. So the next time that critical voice sneaks in, take a second to pause and ask yourself, would I say this to my child? Would I say this to somebody I love? And if the answer is no, change the narrative. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Strong as a Mother. If you implement any of these strategies with your family, I would love to hear about it. Please share, and don't forget to tag me, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with other moms who need it. Until next time, be kind to yourself. Remember, you are strong as a mother.